Money. It's one of the few things every single one of us uses every day. You work to earn money. You spend money to live. And the moment money starts moving, it stops being just money. It becomes capital. When capital moves, value gets created. Work creates value. Spending buys service. And whether we like it or not, every one of us is a tiny little gear inside a much bigger machine. So what is capital operation, really? The official definition sounds complicated. Capital is the power to control resources, and through controlling resources, gain even more control over resources. That's capital operation. Sounds abstract, right? Sounds like something only bankers, billionaires, and Wall Street insiders are supposed to understand. But it's actually much simpler than that. Let me show you through a few stories. Once you hear them, you'll never look at money the same way again. Imagine a small American town. Main Street is dying. The motel owner owes the butcher. The butcher owes the cattle rancher. The rancher owes the feed supplier. The feed supplier owes rent. Everybody is in debt. Everybody is surviving on credit. Everybody is surviving on credit. Then one day, a traveler pulls up to a roadside motel. He walks in, puts a crisp $1,000 bill on the front desk, and says he wants to look at a room before deciding whether to stay. The motel owner sees the cash and immediately runs next door to pay the butcher. The butcher takes that same $1,000 and runs across the street to pay the rancher. The rancher uses it to pay the feed supplier. The feed supplier rushes out and uses it to pay a woman in town he owed money to. She takes that same $1,000 bill and runs back to the motel to settle the room charges she had been behind on. At that exact moment, the traveler comes back downstairs, says he didn't like any of the rooms, grabs his $1,000 off the desk, and leaves town. Now stop and think about what just happened. No one produced anything new. No one actually got richer in the traditional sense. No new product was built. No extra service was performed. Yet everybody's immediate financial problem was solved. Why? Because money moved. That's the first lesson most people miss. Money has power not only because of how much of it exists, but because of how fast and how effectively it circulates. A stagnant dollar is just paper. A moving dollar is economic force. And this is exactly why some communities feel alive while others feel stuck. It's not always because one place has more wealth. Sometimes it's because one place has better flow. The same $100 can die in a checking account, or it can pay a contractor who pays a supplier, who pays an employee, who pays a landlord, who pays a lender. That same $100 can touch 5 different lives in a week. That's capital in motion. Now, here's the second story. A banker's son once asked his father, "Dad, how did you make so much money?" The father smiled, opened the fridge, and told his son to bring him a slab of steak. The son did. Then the father told him to put it back. So the boy put it back in the fridge, confused and a little annoyed. The banker looked at him and said, "The steak was in the fridge before, and it's still in the fridge now. But look at your hands. Didn't you take a little grease for yourself?" That is one of the simplest explanations of finance you will ever hear. A lot of people think wealth only comes from owning the thing. But in many cases, wealth comes from touching the thing, moving the thing, financing the thing, brokering the thing, packaging the thing, insuring the thing, marketing the thing, or creating access to the thing. The stake is still the stake, but value leaked out during the transfer. That's how banks work. That's how brokers work. That's how payment processors work. That's how real estate agents work. That's how fund managers work. That's how platforms work. And increasingly, that's how the entire digital economy works. You may not own the house, but you can take a fee for financing it. You may not own the inventory, but you can take a fee for moving it. You may not make the content, but you can monetize the audience around it. This is where a lot of people stay trapped in employee thinking. They only ask, "What can I make?" Wealthier people ask, "What can I control? What can I connect? What can I direct? Where does value leak? And how do I position myself there?" That question changes everything. Now let's take it up a level. Suppose investor A gives me a $5 million certificate of deposit. I bring in partner B and use that CD as collateral at a private bank where the borrowing rate is lower than what I'd get in the US. Then I take that borrowed money and go to Italy with partner C to buy a vineyard. After the vineyard is purchased, partner C uses the vineyard itself as collateral with an Italian bank and borrows another $5 million at an even lower rate. Then I use that second pool of capital to buy wine and olive oil, import it into the American market, and sell it through an established distribution network. Let's say after everything is sold, the business clears a $3 million profit. The original collateral gets released. The financing chain gets unwound. And in the end, what do I have? The profit, the asset, the optionality. That's not magic. That's leverage, arbitrage, and resource layering. Now, before anybody gets carried away, this is not beginner-level personal finance. This is not something the average person should go out and try. The point of the story is not go borrow recklessly. The point is to understand how sophisticated players think. Average people think in straight lines: work, save, spend. Sophisticated capital thinks in loops: collateralize, borrow, acquire, refinance, distribute, monetize, and unwind. That's why someone with moderate cash but strong structure can often outperform someone with bigger cash and no strategy. Capital is not just about having money. It's about knowing how to stack claims on assets, cash flow, and opportunity. And once you see that, you start noticing it everywhere. The fourth story makes that even clearer. Imagine a media entrepreneur in Los Angeles. Years ago, he made a fortune in entertainment, then lost most of it in a bad investment cycle. He was deep in debt, no real cash, no major assets left. Most people would say he was finished. Instead, he started thinking in capital terms. He set up a small media company. Then he approached local TV stations and digital broadcasters with a proposal. I'll provide free programming for a certain time slot, and in return, I want a few minutes of ad inventory every day. Then he approached a production company and promised to invest in its future slate on one condition. The production company had to supply his media company with a certain amount of content every year. After that, he went to the owner of a publicly traded media company and said, I control a meaningful block of advertising inventory tied to recurring programming. This can generate millions in ad revenue. The public company owner listened, saw the upside, and agreed to acquire 30% of the media company using a mix of cash and stock. Suddenly, the man who looked broke on the outside became the second largest shareholder in a listed company. He used some of the cash to follow through on his commitment to the production company. The programming pipeline got stronger. The ad inventory became more valuable. The public market got excited. The stock price climbed. And within 2 years, he was rich again. Now look carefully at what happened here. The TV stations had ad slots but needed programming. The production company had production ability but needed money and distribution. The public company had capital but needed a compelling growth story. And the entrepreneur? He didn't really own much of anything at the beginning, but he understood how to connect the missing pieces. That is one of the deepest truths in business. Sometimes the most valuable person in the room is not the one with the most money, or the biggest factory, or the most employees. It's the one who knows how to organize scattered resources into a system that creates value for everybody. That's what real capital operation looks like. It's not always about inventing something new. Sometimes it's about rearranging what already exists so that hidden value becomes visible. Then, once that value becomes visible, capital rushes in and amplifies it. And that is where business models become so powerful. A strong business model doesn't just help you extract more value from your own resources. It makes outside capital want to enter your system. And the moment capital enters your system, your opportunities get bigger. That's why the biggest breakthroughs in modern business often don't come from better products alone. They come from better structures. Think about the internet. We didn't just get new companies. We got new models, free first, then paid. Crowdfunding, platforms, subscriptions, marketplace commissions, ad-supported ecosystems, freemium software, creator monetization, network effects. And once you understand the structure, even outrageous stories start to make more sense. Here's a wild one. Imagine an adult entertainer leaves the nightlife scene and gets hired at a trading company. Over the course of a month, she gets romantically involved with 20 married male coworkers. Then she quits. A few days later, she sends every one of them the same text. I'm pregnant. I need $5,000 for an abortion. If you pay once, I'll never bother you again. 3 days later, she has collected $100,000. Now first, let's be clear. This is not a moral lesson. It's a structural lesson. Don't focus on the ethics for a second. Focus on the model. What is this? Cross-industry positioning, user scale, and hyper-personalized monetization. In plain English, she entered a new environment, built a network of vulnerable users, and monetized the same emotional trigger across all of them. That's a dark version of free first, paid later. Now let's keep going, because the framework gets even more ridiculous. If 20 men each chip in $250 to cover the supposed procedure, that's crowdfunding. If they each contribute a small amount now because they believe the problem could become much more expensive later, that's risk pooling. If someone funds her transportation and expenses in exchange for a cut of the returns, that's angel investing. If she never actually got pregnant and the entire story was hypothetical, that's the pitch deck. If she hasn't even joined the company yet and is only planning the operation, that's the startup plan. If the company hires her, pays her nothing, but allows her to monetize the male employees while the company indirectly benefits from whatever side effects that creates, that's the classic platform model. The wool comes off the sheep, but the pig pays for it. In modern internet language, one side of the market gets subsidized while another side foots the bill. And if the company's owner spends money to rebrand her, put her into reality TV, land endorsement deals, and turn her into a public personality, that's asset restructuring plus risk transfer. If she suddenly becomes famous and the owner's investment multiplies 20 or 30 times over, that's the equivalent of a successful IPO. Again, I'm not telling you this story because it's noble. I'm telling you this story because exaggerated examples reveal structure more clearly than polite ones do. And once you see the structure, you start understanding the economy differently. You stop seeing isolated events and start seeing systems. You stop asking, how much does this cost? And you start asking, who pays? Why do they pay? What value are they buying? What pain is being relieved? What attention is being captured? What resource is being unlocked? What risk is being transferred? That shift in thinking is massive. Because most people spend their lives participating in business models they do not understand. They work inside them, buy from them, borrow through them, subscribe to them, and get extracted by them without ever studying the architecture. They think the product is the business. It usually isn't. The product is often just the bait. The business model is the machine. A gym does not make money because dumbbells exist. A gym makes money because a certain percentage of members pay and don't show up. Credit card companies do not make money because plastic is magical. They make money because human beings like convenience today and underestimate the cost tomorrow. Streaming companies don't just sell entertainment, they sell low-friction habit loops. Social platforms don't merely connect people. They capture attention, package behavior, and sell predictability. That's why understanding capital and business models matters even if you never plan to start a company. If you're an employee, it helps you understand how your employer really makes money, which makes you more valuable. If you're an investor, it helps you identify what businesses actually scale. If you're a consumer, it helps you see when you are the customer and when you are the product. And if you're building something of your own, it forces you to ask the right questions early. What resources do I control? What resources do I influence? What resources can I connect? What value can I create by improving flow? What can be monetized directly? What can be monetized indirectly? What can be offered free in order to make something else more valuable? Those questions separate small thinking from strategic thinking. Because here's the truth, the real masters of capital are not always the people creating the raw material. They're often the people who know how to activate it, route it, package it, and position it. They know how to take $1 and make it behave like 10. Not by printing money, not by fantasizing, but by putting that dollar where it unlocks more movement, more coordination, and more leverage. That's the magic of capital. A great business model can make weak resources stronger. It can pull in outside money. It can multiply opportunities. It can turn invisible value into visible enterprise value. And in public markets, once enough people believe in that value, the financial upside can get magnified even further. So after hearing these stories, does the idea of capital operation feel a little less mysterious? It should. At its core, it's not some secret language spoken only in boardrooms. It's the art of organizing money, people, assets, attention, distribution, trust, and timing into a structure that produces more value than the individual parts could have created on their own. That's it. And once you understand that, you can no longer look at money as just something you earn and spend. You start seeing it as energy, as permission, as influence, as leverage, as motion. You start seeing why some people stay trapped working for money their whole lives, while others learn how to make money work through systems. And maybe the biggest lesson of all is this: if you can't build capital, at least learn how capital builds around you. Because whether you understand the game or not, you are already inside it. So the better question is not whether capital operation exists. The better question is, can you recognize it when you see it? Can you protect yourself from the bad versions of it? And can you use the good versions of it to build a smarter financial life? That's where the real education begins. So tell me in the comments, what other examples of capital operation or clever business models have you seen in real life? Maybe it was in tech, real estate, media, retail, or even something as ordinary as a coffee shop. I'd love to hear your take. And if this changed the way you think about money, subscribe to the channel. Because in the next video, we're going even deeper into how business models shape your income, your spending, and your future. See you in the next one.